Come, little ones, settle down now. The fire is banking low, its orange embers pulse like a sleeping heart. The moon, a sliver of polished bone, hangs in the ink-black sky, and the stars are scattered like a careless hand has tossed shimmering river diamonds across a dark blanket. Listen, can you hear it? That is the song of the night. The crickets, the chirring of the cicadas, the distant hoot of an owl who has just woken up. This is the time for stories. The time when the world grows quiet, and the whispers of the past can be heard. Settle in. Let the warmth of the dying fire soothe you, and let my old voice be a river that carries you gently towards the land of dreams. Tonight, we will speak of Anansi. Anansi the Spider. Now you have all seen a spider, have you not? A tiny creature, with 8 spindly legs, a body no bigger than your thumbnail. You might think such a creature is of no importance. You might see him in the corner of the ceiling, spinning his delicate web, and think nothing of it. But you would be wrong. For Anansi, though he is small, though he has no great strength, no sharp claws or mighty roar, possesses something far more powerful. He has a mind that is as quick and intricate as the webs he spins. He is clever. So very, very clever. Sometimes his cleverness is a gift that helps everyone. And sometimes, well, sometimes his cleverness gets him into a great deal of trouble. But before we speak of his troubles, we must first speak of his triumphs. For there was a time, long, long ago, when the world was a very quiet place. There were no stories. Can you imagine such a thing? No tales told around the fire at night. No legends of heroes. No fables of foolish animals. The world was like a drum with no one to beat it. It was full of happenings, but empty of the telling. All the stories in the world, every single one, belonged to Nyame, the great sky god. He kept them locked away in a golden box, next to his throne, in the clouds. And no one, not animal nor man, dared to ask for them. No one, that is, except Anansi. One morning Anansi woke up and felt a great emptiness in the world. He saw the sun rise, a magnificent spectacle of orange and pink. But no one had a story about why the sun journeyed across the sky. He saw the river flowing, but no one told a tale of where it began or where it was going. "This will not do," Anansi said to his wife, Aso. "A world without stories is like a meal without salt. It fills the belly, but it does not delight the spirit. I am going to see Nyame. I am going to buy his stories." Aso, who knew her husband very well, simply shook her head and continued to grind her maize. "Anansi," she said softly, "the sky god is great and powerful. You are small, and, well, you are you. What could you possibly offer him for his golden box of stories?" "I will offer my cleverness," Anansi declared, puffing out his tiny chest. And with that, he began to spin. He spun a thread of the finest, strongest silk, so fine it was almost invisible, shimmering in the morning light. He attached one end to the top of a tall, tall baobab tree, and then he began to climb, spinning his silver ladder up, up, up into the endless blue of the sky. He climbed for a day and a night. The world below grew smaller and smaller, until the great forest looked like a patch of green moss, and the mighty river was just a silver ribbon. At last he arrived in the kingdom of the sky. The clouds were soft and springy under his 8 feet, and the palace of Nyame was woven from moonlight and sunbeams. Anansi walked, with as much dignity as a tiny spider could manage, into the great hall. There, on a throne carved from a single storm cloud, sat Nyame the sky god. His voice was the sound of distant thunder, and his eyes held the light of 1,000 stars. "Anansi," boomed the sky god, his voice making the clouds tremble, "you are a long way from the world below. What brings such a small creature to my doorstep?" Anansi bowed low, all 8 of his knees touching the cloudy floor. "O great and mighty Nyame," he said, his voice as smooth as palm oil, "I have come to buy your stories." The world below is quiet and dull. We need your tales to fill our nights and enlighten our days." A low chuckle rumbled from Nyame's chest. The guards, who were made of starlight and wind, shifted their feet. "You wish to buy my stories?" Nyame said, a smile playing on his lips. "Many have wished for them. Kings have offered gold, and chiefs have offered cattle. But my stories are not for sale for such common things. The price is very high." "Name it," said Anansi, his heart beating a little faster. "Whatever the price, I will pay it." Nyame leaned forward, his great face filling Anansi's vision. "Very well, little spider. If you wish to have my golden box of stories, you must bring me 3 things. First, you must bring me Moboro, the hornets who sting like fire. Second, you must bring me Onini, the great python who can swallow a goat whole. And third, you must bring me Osibo, the leopard with teeth like knives and a coat of spotted shadows." The Starlight Guards gasped. This was an impossible task. Momoboro, the hornets, were a terrifying swarm that no one dared approach. Onini the python was so long and strong he could crush a tree, and Osibo the leopard was the most cunning and deadly hunter in the entire forest. To ask a tiny spider to capture all 3 was not a price, it was a joke. But Anansi did not see it as a joke. He simply bowed again. "O great Nyame," he said calmly, "I will bring you these things, consider your price paid." And with that, he turned and scurried back to his silver thread, leaving the sky god and his court speechless. Anansi climbed back down to the world below, his mind spinning faster than his web. How could he, with no strength at all, capture these fearsome creatures? He did not worry, for Anansi knew that a strong back is good, but a clever mind is better. First, he went in search of Moboro, the hornets. He found their huge, papery nest hanging from the branch of a silk cotton tree. The air around it hummed with a dangerous energy, and the sound of 1,000 angry wings was enough to make even the bravest warrior turn back. But Anansi was not a brave warrior. He was a clever spider. He found a large, empty calabash gourd and cut a small hole in it. Then he went to the river and filled a huge banana leaf with water. He crept quietly to the tree where the hornets lived. He climbed a tree opposite their nest and waited. Then he began his trick. He sprinkled the water from the leaf onto the hornet's nest a little bit at a time, while calling out in a loud, worried voice, "Oh, it is raining! It is raining so hard! Your nest will be ruined. Your children will be soaked. Oh, what will you do?" He then sprinkled more water, a heavier shower this time. The hornets, feeling the drops, buzzed in a panic. "He is right," they buzzed to one another. "This terrible rain will destroy our home. Where can we go? Where can we find shelter?" Anansi, seeing his plan was working, called out again, "Oh, my poor friends, the hornets, do not worry. I have a fine, dry gourd here. You can all come and shelter inside my calabash until the rain stops." The king of the hornets buzzed gratefully. "Oh, thank you, kind Anansi. You have saved us!" And the entire swarm, thousands upon thousands of angry, stinging hornets, flew straight from their nest and poured into the small hole in the calabash gourd. Buzz. The sound was deafening. When the very last hornet was inside, Anansi quickly and cleverly plugged the hole with a ball of grass. He held the humming, vibrating gourd up. "Oh, hornets," he said with a little chuckle. "You are not very clever, are you? It was not raining at all. But you will make a fine gift for Nyame." He took the captured hornets and placed them at the foot of the baobab tree. 1 down, 2 to go. Next, Anansi went in search of Onini, the great python. This was a different challenge. The python was not a swarm to be tricked with water. He was a single, immensely powerful creature. Anansi knew he could not fight him, so he would have to outwit him. Anansi cut a long, strong bamboo pole from the forest and a great length of tough creeper vine. He walked through the jungle, carrying the pole and talking loudly to himself. This was part of his plan. Oh dear," Anansi said, loud enough for any listening creature to hear. "My wife Aso is a foolish woman. She says this bamboo pole is longer than the great python Onini. I say she is wrong. I say Onini is much, much longer. Oh, what a silly argument. I am right, of course. He is longer. No, she says he is shorter. I am so confused. He repeated this over and over, walking back and forth in the part of the forest where he knew the python liked to sleep. Soon enough, a great, scaly head emerged from the undergrowth. 2 yellow eyes blinked slowly. "What is all this noise, Anansi?" hissed the python. His voice was like the slithering of dry leaves. "You are disturbing my rest with your foolish chatter." Anansi pretended to be startled. "Oh, great Onini, forgive me. It is just a silly disagreement with my wife. She insists that you are shorter than this bamboo pole. I, of course, know that you are much, much longer. A magnificent creature such as yourself must be the longest thing in the forest." The python was very proud. He did not like the idea that anyone, especially Anansi's wife, thought he was short. "Your wife is a fool," Onini hissed, puffing himself up. "I am far longer than that pathetic stick. Let me show you." "Oh, would you?" Anansi said, his eyes wide with fake innocence. "That would settle the argument once and for all. If you would just lie down next to the pole, we could see for certain." The proud python agreed. He stretched himself out, straight and long, beside the bamboo pole. He was indeed very long. But Anansi had a plan. "You see," Anansi exclaimed, "you are longer. But wait. When you stretch, your tail curls up a little at the end. And when you straighten your tail, your head pulls back. It is hard to get an accurate measurement. If I could just tie you to the pole just for a moment to keep you straight, then we could see your true magnificent length." The python, so focused on proving his greatness, did not see the trap. "Very well, little spider, be quick about it." Anansi took his tough creeper vine. He went to the python's tail. "I will just tie this here," he said, wrapping the vine tightly, "just to keep it straight." Then he moved up the python's body, and a little knot here to stop you from wiggling. He kept talking, his voice calm and reassuring, as he wrapped the vine around and around the great snake and the bamboo pole. "And another loop here. You are so very long, it is quite impressive. Just one more here by your magnificent head." By the time the python realized what was happening, he was tied so tightly to the pole he could not move a single muscle. He was as helpless as a worm on a stick. Anansi stood back and chuckled. "Oh, Onini," he said, "you are very long, it is true, but you are not very clever. You will make a fine gift for Nyame." He dragged the trussed-up python to the foot of the baobab tree and laid him next to the humming calabash. 2 down, 1 to go. The final task was the most dangerous. Osibo, the leopard. The leopard was not only strong and fierce, but he was also clever and suspicious. He could not be tricked with water or flattery. Anansi knew he would need a different kind of plan. A deeper trap. He went deep into the part of the forest where Osibo hunted. He found a path the leopard used often, and there, right in the middle of it, he dug a deep, deep pit. He covered the top of the pit with thin branches and leaves, making it look exactly like the forest floor. Then he waited. He didn't have to wait long. That night, as Osibo was stalking through the darkness, silent as a shadow, he stepped right onto the flimsy cover. Crash! The leopard fell down, down, down into the darkness of the pit, landing with an angry snarl. He was trapped. He clawed at the dirt walls, but they were too steep. He leaped, but the pit was too deep. The next morning, Anansi came to the edge of the pit and peered down. "Oh my! What is this?" he cried, pretending to be shocked. "Is that the great and mighty Osibo trapped in a hole?" The leopard looked up, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. "Anansi, get me out of here at once." "Get you out?" Anansi said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "But you are so strong and fierce. If I help you out, you might eat me for my trouble." "I will not eat you, you foolish spider," Osibo roared. "I promise! Just help me escape this trap." Anansi pretended to think for a long, long time. "Well, I suppose I could help. I have an idea. I will bend down 2 strong sapling trees and tie their tops together with a vine. right over the pit. Then you can grab onto the vine, and when I cut it, the trees will spring up and pull you out of the hole." This sounded like a good plan to the desperate leopard. "Yes, yes! Do it! Quickly!" So Anansi did as he said. He bent down 2 strong, springy trees on either side of the pit and tied their tops together with a tough vine. The trees strained, wanting to spring back upright. "Now, Osibo," Anansi called down, "I will lower a rope for you. Tie it around your tail." Osibo, eager to get out, did as he was told. Anansi then tied the other end of the rope to the bent trees. "Are you ready?" Anansi called. "Yes, pull me up," snarled the leopard. But Anansi did not pull him up. Instead, with a quick flick of his leg, he cut the vine, holding the 2 trees together. Twang! The trees sprang upright with incredible force, yanking the leopard out of the pit and leaving him dangling upside down in the air, swinging by his tail, completely helpless. Anansi looked at the snarling, twisting leopard and shook his head. "Oh, Osibo," he said with a sigh, "you are fierce, it is true, but your hunger makes you foolish. You will make a fine final gift for Nyame." He killed the leopard, for he knew Nyame would not want a live one in his sky kingdom. He slung the beautiful spotted pelt over his back and carried it to the foot of the baobab tree. There they were, the Momoboro hornets buzzing angrily in their gourd, Onini the python tied securely to his pole, and the magnificent pelt of Osibo the leopard. The price was complete. Once more, Anansi spun his silver thread up to the sky. This time, he carried his prizes with him. It was a long and difficult journey, but the thought of the golden box of stories gave him strength. He arrived again in the court of the sky god. He laid the 3 impossible prizes at the foot of Nyame's throne. The starlight guards stared in utter disbelief. The clouds themselves seemed to hold their breath. Nyame the sky god looked down from his throne. He looked at the humming calabash. He looked at the mighty python, still tied to the pole. He looked at the beautiful, fearsome leopard. And then he looked at the tiny spider, Anansi, standing proudly before him. A great, booming laugh echoed through the Sky Kingdom. It was not a laugh of mockery, but a laugh of pure astonishment and respect. "Anansi," Nyame's voice thundered, "you have done it. You have paid the price, a price no king or warrior could meet. You said you would do it, and you did. Your body is small, Anansi, but your spirit is great, and your mind is sharp. The stories are yours." Nyame lifted the golden box. It glowed with an inner light, and from it came the faint murmur of 1,000 tales waiting to be told. He handed it down to the little spider. Anansi took the box. It was heavy, heavy with the weight of all the stories in the world, but he held it tight. He bowed one last time to Nyame, and then, carefully, he carried his prize back down the silver thread to the world of green and brown below. When he returned to his village, he opened the box. And the stories flew out. They flew out like butterflies, like seeds on the wind. They settled in the villages and in the forests, in the minds of the old and the hearts of the young. A story about why the moon and sun live in the sky flew to a grandmother rocking a baby. A story about the clever tortoise flew to a group of children playing by the river. A story about the creation of the world settled into the memory of the village elder. And from that day on, the world was no longer quiet. The nights were filled with tales told around the fires, just as we are doing now. And because it was Anansi who paid the price, who used his cleverness to bring them down from the sky, all these stories, no matter who they are about, are called Anansi stories. And that, little ones, is the story of how stories came to be. It is the first and most important of Anansi's tales. Now rest a moment. Feel the gentle night air on your cheeks. The fire is very low now, just a soft red glow. Are your eyes feeling heavy? Good, there is more to tell. For having all the stories was one thing, but Anansi soon decided he wanted something else as well. He wanted all the wisdom in the world. Asterix, Asterix. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Anansi had all the stories. He was a very important person now. Whenever there was a gathering, it was Anansi who was asked to speak. He told tales of wonder and of laughter, and everyone listened, enchanted. But Anansi, as you are beginning to see, was never quite satisfied. He saw the farmer, who had the wisdom of the seasons, knowing just when to plant the yams and when to harvest the cassava. He saw the weaver, who had the wisdom of the loom, knowing how to turn threads into beautiful kente cloth. He saw the elder, who had the wisdom of the ancestors, knowing the laws and the history of the people. Anansi looked at all this wisdom, scattered among so many people, and he thought to himself, this is not efficient. All this wisdom, in little bits and pieces, all over the place. What if I were to gather it all up, all of it, and keep it for myself? Then, whenever anyone needed to know anything, they would have to come to me. Anansi, I would be the wisest creature in the entire world. It was a greedy thought, but it took root in his clever mind and grew like a fast-growing vine. So Anansi set about his task. He found a large, strong clay pot with a narrow neck, the kind used for storing water. This would be his vessel for wisdom. He went first to the farmer. "Oh, wise farmer," Anansi said in his most flattering voice. "I am telling a story about the earth, and I need to make sure it is correct. Could you tell me all you know about the soil and the rains and the way the seeds sleep and then awaken?" The farmer, proud of his knowledge, told Anansi everything. He told him how to read the clouds, how to feel the moisture in the air, how to listen to the whisper of the growing corn. And as he spoke, Anansi secretly caught all the words of wisdom and funneled them into his clay pot. A shimmering golden mist of knowledge flowed from the farmer and was trapped inside. Next, he went to the blacksmith. "Mighty blacksmith," he said, "I am composing a song about the strength of our people. Tell me the secrets of fire and iron. How do you turn hard, black rock into sharp machetes and sturdy hoe blades?" The blacksmith, happy to share his craft, told Anansi all about the heat of the forge, the rhythm of the hammer, the hiss of the hot metal in the cooling water, and Anansi caught this wisdom, a fiery sparking vapor, and funneled it into his pot. He went on like this for weeks. He took the hunter's wisdom of tracking and silence. He took the fisherman's wisdom of currents and tides. He took the mother's wisdom of healing herbs and soothing lullabies. He took the chief's wisdom of judgment and diplomacy. Little by little, all the wisdom of the world was drawn out and collected, a swirling, glowing cloud inside his large clay pot. The world began to change. The farmer forgot the best time to plant his seeds. The weaver stared blankly at her loom, her fingers forgetting their dance. The storyteller paused mid-sentence, the end of his tale gone from his mind. People became confused and clumsy. They could still work and live, but the spark, the deep knowing was gone. It was all in Anansi's pot. Anansi was delighted. He sealed the pot tightly with a wooden stopper and a plug of beeswax. "It is all mine," he whispered to himself, hugging the heavy pot. "All the wisdom in the world belongs to me now." His next problem was where to hide his treasure. He couldn't keep it in his house. His wife Asa was far too observant, and his children were too curious. No, he had to hide it somewhere no one would ever think to look. "I know," he thought. "I will hide it at the very top of the tallest, thorniest silk cotton tree in the forest. No one will be able to climb it but me." So he took his great pot of wisdom and went deep into the forest until he found the perfect tree. It was immense, its branches scraping the clouds, and its trunk was covered in sharp, woody thorns. It was the perfect hiding place. Now, Anansi had a problem. The pot was large and round and heavy. How was he to climb the tree while carrying it? He thought for a moment with his clever mind. "I will tie it in front of me," he decided. "That way I can keep an eye on it." He took a strong vine and tied the pot securely to his belly. It stuck out in front of him like the great round stomach of a well-fed chief. He approached the tree and began to climb. But it was impossible. With the huge pot strapped to his front, he couldn't get his body close to the trunk of the tree. His short spider legs couldn't reach around it to get a grip. The sharp thorns pricked him. He would climb a little way, grunt, grunt, slip, and slide back down to the bottom. He tried again, struggling and straining, his breath coming in short gasps. Short scrabble, scrabble, slide. The pot banged against the trunk, making a hollow sound. He was getting nowhere, and he was growing very, very frustrated. Now, all this time, he had been watched. His youngest son, a small, quiet spider named Intikuma, had followed him into the forest, curious about what his father was doing with the big clay pot. He hid behind a bush and watched his father's clumsy, comical struggle. He saw him try to climb, fail, and slide down. He saw him get angrier and angrier, muttering to himself. Finally, Intikuma could not keep quiet any longer. He stepped out from behind the bush. "Father," he said in his small voice. Anansi whipped around, startled and angry at being seen in such an undignified state. "Intikuma, what are you doing here? Go away!" "Father," the little spider said, ignoring the anger. "I was just watching you climb. It seems very difficult." "Of course it's difficult," Anansi snapped. "I am carrying a very important, very heavy pot." Intikuma looked at the pot, tied to his father's front, and then at the tree. "Father," he said hesitantly, "would it not be easier if you tied the pot to your back? Then your belly would be free to press against the tree, and your legs could grip the trunk properly." Anansi stopped. He stared at his son. The logic of it was so simple, so obvious. Tie the pot to his back. Of course. Why hadn't he thought of that? He, Anansi, who had all the wisdom in the entire world sealed in the very pot he was carrying, had not been able to solve this simple problem. And his small son, with just the tiny sliver of wisdom he had been born with, had seen the answer immediately. A wave of fury washed over Anansi. It was not just anger, it was humiliation. His grand plan to be the sole keeper of wisdom was a sham. He was a fool. "Arg!" he roared, a sound of pure frustration. In his rage, he untied the vine holding the pot. He raised the heavy clay pot high above his head with all his might. "If I cannot have all the wisdom," he shrieked, "then no one can." And he threw the pot down onto a large, hard rock at the base of the tree. The pot shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. The seal broke, and the captured wisdom, the shimmering, glowing cloud of knowledge, was suddenly free. A great wind seemed to rush out from the broken shards, and it carried the wisdom with it. Whoosh! The wisdom blew all across the world. It blew back to the village and into the forest. A piece of knowledge about healing herbs flew into the mind of a mother nursing her sick child. A piece of wisdom about carving wood settled on the hands of a carpenter. A tiny, sparkling bit of knowledge about how to forgive a friend landed in the heart of a young girl. The wind blew and blew, and it scattered the wisdom far and wide, into every corner of the land, until the great glowing cloud was gone, broken up into millions of tiny, invisible specks. It settled like gentle dust on everyone and everything. Anansi stood there, amidst the broken pieces of his pot, empty-handed. He had tried to keep all the wisdom for himself, and in the end, he had none of it. But the world was wise again. The farmer remembered how to read the clouds, the weaver's fingers found their rhythm, and the storyteller remembered the end of his tale. And that, little ones, is why it is so. No single person has all the wisdom. It does not live in a pot, it lives in small pieces, inside each and every one of us, a little bit in me, the storyteller. A little bit in you, the listener. A little bit in the trees and the river and the ants in their hills. And we are wisest not when we try to hoard it, but when we put our little pieces together. Now, your breathing is growing slow and deep. That is good. Let the story be a soft blanket. There is no need to struggle. Just listen. Listen to the sound of the night and the sound of my voice. Let us follow Anansi on another of his adventures, a much simpler one. A story about a patch of moss and a bowl of delicious steaming yams. Asterisk. Asterisk. This next story is a quiet one, a silly one. It is a story to make you smile in your sleep. It happened not long after Anansi lost the pot of wisdom. He was feeling very sorry for himself, and also very hungry. Anansi was often very hungry. His appetite was much bigger than his body. One afternoon, he was walking through the cool, green part of the forest, his stomach rumbling a loud song of emptiness. Grumble, grumble, rumble. He was looking for something to eat, perhaps some sweet berries or a juicy mango. As he walked, his mind was busy complaining. "It is not fair," he muttered to himself. "I, the clever Anansi, who brought stories to the world, should not have to search for my food. Food should come to me." As he was grumbling and walking, he came to a small clearing, and in the middle of the clearing there was a rock. It was not a large rock, but it was a peculiar one. It was covered in a thick, soft, velvety green moss. It looked like a comfortable cushion placed there by the forest itself. Anansi stopped and stared at it. He had never noticed this particular rock before. He said aloud, speaking to no one. "Is it not a strange and moss-covered rock?" The moment the words left his mouth, something incredible happened. Anansi found himself flat on his back, the world spinning. He blinked and shook his head. He had no idea what had happened. It was as if he had fallen asleep for an hour in the blink of an eye. He felt dizzy and confused. What was that?" he mumbled. He got to his 8 feet, feeling very strange. His stomach was still rumbling, so he forgot all about the rock and continued on his way, searching for food. A little while later he came across a small duiker, a gentle forest antelope, who was carrying a basket of freshly dug yams. Anansi's eyes lit up. There was nothing he loved more than boiled yams with a little palm oil. "Greetings, friend duiker," Anansi said, his voice suddenly cheerful and friendly. "Where are you going with such fine-looking yams?" "I am going home to cook them for my family, Anansi," said the duiker. "Oh, they look delicious," Anansi said, his mouth watering. "But you know, the journey home is long. Why don't you take a shortcut through this little clearing I just found? It is very pleasant." Anansi, you see, had already formed a little plan. It was a half-formed plan, born of his strange experience, but his clever mind was working on it. He led the unsuspecting duiker back towards the clearing with the mossy rock. As they entered the clearing, Anansi pointed with one of his legs. "Look at that, friend duiker. Have you ever seen such a rock?" The duiker looked at the soft green rock. "Why, no, I have not," he said politely. "Is it not a strange and moss-covered rock?" Quump! The duiker instantly fell to the ground in a deep, magical sleep, his basket of yams spilling onto the grass. Anansi pounced on the yams. "Aha!" he cried in triumph. "It is a magic rock, a magic sleeping rock. This is wonderful. I will never have to work for my food again." He gathered up all the yams, a wonderful pile of them, and scurried home as fast as his legs could carry him, leaving the poor duiker to wake up an hour later, dizzy and confused and with no yams. Anansi boiled the yams until they were soft and fluffy. He mashed them with a little salt and a generous drizzle of rich, red palm oil. The smell was heavenly. He ate the entire bowl himself, not even sharing a single bite with his wife Aso or his children. He sat back with a full, round belly, feeling very pleased with his own cleverness. The next day, he went back to the magic rock. He sat and waited. Soon a squirrel came by, his cheeks bulging with groundnuts. "Good day, friend squirrel," Anansi called out. "That is a fine collection of nuts you have there." "They are for the winter," chattered the squirrel. Of course," said Anansi. "But before you go, come and look at this wonderful thing I have found." He led the squirrel to the rock. "Have you ever seen its like?" The squirrel twitched his nose. "It is very green," he said. "Is it not a strange and moss-covered rock?" Whump! The squirrel fell down, fast asleep, and all his groundnuts spilled from his paws. Anansi gathered them all up and took them home for his dinner. This went on for many days. Anansi would trick a different animal each day. He tricked a monkey with a bunch of bananas. He tricked a wild fowl with a clutch of eggs. He tricked a warthog with a basket of sweet roots. His trick was always the same. He would lead them to the clearing and get them to say the magic words, "Is it not a strange and moss-covered rock?" And each time, the animal would fall asleep, and Anansi would steal their food. He grew fat and lazy. He no longer bothered to hunt or farm. He just sat by his magic rock, waiting for his next meal to walk by. But the other animals were starting to get suspicious. They would talk among themselves by the watering hole. "I was walking through the forest," the docker would say, "and then I woke up and my yams were gone." "The same thing happened to me," chattered the squirrel. "My groundnuts vanished." Soon, they all realized that the one person who was never hungry, the one person who was always looking suspiciously well-fed, was Anansi. They decided that someone needed to find out what his secret was. And the one chosen for the job was the slowest, most patient, and most observant creature of them all, the turtle. The turtle, whose name was Kwaku, moved very, very slowly. But his mind was not slow. He listened to all the stories and noted that every animal had been walking with Anansi near the silk cotton trees just before they lost their food. The next day, Kwaku the turtle filled a bag with delicious sweet river weed, his favorite food. He began to walk, very slowly, through the forest, right past the clearing of the magic rock. Sure enough, Anansi appeared from behind a bush. "Greetings, wise Kwaku," Anansi said with a wide, toothy grin. "That looks like a heavy bag for such a long journey." "It is," said the turtle in his slow, deep voice, "but the food is worth the effort." "Perhaps you would like to rest for a moment," Anansi offered. "I know a lovely, quiet spot." He led the turtle into the clearing. Kwaku saw the moss-covered rock immediately. He knew this had to be the key to the mystery. My, said Anansi, gesturing towards the rock. "In all your long years, Kwaku, have you ever seen such a marvelous rock as that one?" The turtle looked at the rock. He looked at Anansi's eager, greedy face. And he understood. He decided to play a little trick of his own. "It is a nice rock, Anansi," the turtle said slowly, "but I cannot remember its name. What is this rock called?" Anansi was getting impatient. "It doesn't have a name. Just look at it. Isn't it, you know?" "Isn't it what?" the turtle asked, pretending to be confused. "Isn't it a big and moss-covered rock?" No, Anansi said, frustrated. "Not big. The other word." "Oh, you mean lumpy?" the turtle guessed. "Is it not a lumpy and moss-covered rock?" "No!" Anansi shouted, hopping from foot to foot in agitation. "Not lumpy? Listen to me, you foolish, slow-witted turtle. You are supposed to say, 'Is it not a strange and moss-covered rock?'" The words were out of his mouth before he could stop them. Anansi fell to the ground, knocked into a deep, magical sleep. He lay there, snoring softly, a little smile on his face. The turtle, Kwaku, chuckled his slow, rumbling chuckle. He walked over to the sleeping spider. He picked up Anansi, who was no bigger than his foot, and carefully, using the spider's own web, he tied him up. Then, he took his bag of riverweed and went to the watering hole to tell all the other animals what had happened. When Anansi woke up an hour later, he was dizzy and confused. He was also tied up. All the animals of the forest were gathered around him, looking down at him. There was the duiker, the squirrel, the monkey, and all the others. They were not angry, but they were not pleased either. Anansi had been caught by his own trick. His cleverness had turned back on him. He felt very, very foolish. The animals untied him, but they took all the food he had hoarded in his house and shared it amongst everyone. From that day on, Anansi learned that a trick, no matter how clever, will not feed you forever, and he never again went near the strange moss-covered rock. The fire is almost gone now, little ones. Just a few red coals winking like sleepy eyes in the darkness. The moon has climbed higher in the sky. Can you feel the sleep coming for you? It is like a soft, warm river, isn't it? Just let it carry you. But there is time for one more story. A story about Anansi and his friend the turtle, and why you should always be a good host. Asterisk. Asterisk. Now, you might think that after the incident with the magic rock, Anansi and Kweku the turtle would not be friends. But in the world of stories, things are not always so simple. Anansi, while embarrassed, also had a strange sort of respect for the turtle who had outsmarted him. And so, a little while later, Anansi decided he should be hospitable. Or at least, he should appear to be hospitable. Anansi was, as you know, very fond of food. And one of his favorite things to do was cook a huge pot of stew, rich with ground nuts and spices and greens, and fill his house with the delicious smell. One day he made just such a stew. The aroma drifted out of his house, which was high up in the rafters of a great tree, and it floated down through the forest. It floated all the way to the riverbank, where Kweku the turtle was slowly sunning himself on a warm stone. The turtle smelled the wonderful stew, and his slow-moving stomach gave a little rumble. He followed the scent, which led him, after a very long and slow journey, to the base of Anansi's tree. "Anansi!" the turtle called up in his deep voice. "My friend, I am here." Anansi peered down from his doorway. "Ah, Kweku! Welcome, welcome! I have made a delicious stew. You have arrived just in time. Please, come up and share it with me." Now, this was a problem for the turtle. Anansi lived high in a tree, and turtles, with their heavy shells and short legs, are not built for climbing. But Anansi had a plan for this. He let down a long, sticky web. "Just hold on to this, my friend," Anansi called down. "I will pull you up." The turtle grabbed the web, and Anansi began to haul him up. It was slow, hard work. The turtle was heavy. Heave, grunt, pull. Finally, dripping with sweat, Anansi pulled the turtle onto the floor of his house. "There you are," Anansi said, panting. "Welcome. The stew is ready." He brought out 2 bowls and a large calabash filled with the steaming, fragrant stew. The turtle's mouth watered. He was about to dip his hand in to take a piece of yam, when Anansi suddenly held up a leg to stop him. "Ah." "Kweku, my friend," Anansi said, shaking his head with a look of great concern. "Look at your hands. You have been walking all day on the dusty forest floor. They are quite dirty. One cannot come to the table with such unclean hands. You must go down to the river and wash them." The turtle looked at his hands. They were indeed a bit dusty. It was a rule of hospitality, so he could not argue. "You are right, Anansi," he said politely. He went to the doorway and looked down. It was a very long way. He couldn't climb down, so he had to just pull in his head and legs and drop. Thump! He landed on the soft earth below and began his long, slow journey back to the river. He washed his hands carefully until they were sparkling clean. Then he began the long, slow journey back to Anansi's tree. "Anansi," he called up. "I am back. My hands are clean." Anansi let down the web again. He grunted and groaned and pulled the heavy turtle all the way back up to his house. By the time the turtle arrived, Anansi had already eaten half of the stew. "Welcome back, my friend," Anansi said, his mouth full. "Hurry now, before it gets cold." The turtle reached for the bowl again, but once more Anansi stopped him. "Oh, Kweku," Anansi said, clicking his tongue. "Look at your hands. On your long walk back from the river, they have become dusty again." "Tusk, tusk, you must go and wash them. We must have cleanliness at the dinner table." The poor turtle looked at his hands. It was true. The slow walk had coated them in a fine layer of dust. He sighed. There was nothing he could do. He had to go all the way back down again. Thump, thump. He went to the river, washed, and made the slow journey back. Anansi pulled him up one more time. But by the time Kweku the turtle finally sat down at the table, clean and exhausted, the pot was empty. Anansi was licking the last drops of gravy from the bowl, his belly round and full. "Oh, what a shame, Kweku," Anansi said with a fake sigh. "You were just too slow. The stew is all gone. It was delicious, though. Perhaps you will have better luck next time." The turtle said nothing. He was very hungry and very tired, but he was also very patient. He looked at Anansi, licking his lips with satisfaction, and he thought to himself, "A trickster must one day be tricked." He smiled a slow, wise smile. "Thank you for the invitation, Anansi," the turtle said politely. "The smell of the stew was wonderful. You must allow me to return the favor. Please, come to my house for dinner tomorrow evening. I live at the bottom of the river." Anansi's eyes lit up. A free dinner! He loved free dinners more than anything. "Of course, my dear friend," he said. "I would be delighted." The next evening, Anansi went to the riverbank. He saw Quickie the turtle sitting on a smooth stone on the riverbed, visible through the clear water. There was a table set with delicious-looking waterweeds and river yams. "Welcome, Anansi," the turtle's voice bubbled up. "Come on down. The food is ready." Anansi tried to go down. He waded into the water, but he was too light. He just floated on the surface. He kicked his legs and splashed, but he couldn't sink. "I cannot get down, Quaku," he shouted. "Oh, that is a problem," the turtle bubbled back. "You are too light. You need something to weigh you down. Perhaps you could fill your pockets with stones." Anansi thought this was a brilliant idea. He scurried around the riverbank, collecting heavy, smooth stones. He stuffed them into the pockets of the little jacket he was wearing. He filled every pocket until he was bulging with stones. He waded back into the river, and this time, he sank. Down, down, down he went, through the cool green water, until he landed with a soft plop on the sandy riverbed right in front of the turtle's table. "Excellent," said the turtle. "You have made it. Please, sit and eat." Anansi's stomach rumbled. The food looked wonderful. He reached out a hand to grab a juicy piece of water yam, but the turtle held up a flipper to stop him. Anansi, my friend," the turtle said in his slow, deep voice. "I am so sorry, but we have a rule in my house. It is considered very rude to wear your jacket to the dinner table. You must take it off." Anansi looked at the turtle. He looked at his jacket, bulging with the heavy stones that were keeping him at the bottom of the river. He knew at once that he had been caught in a trap as clever as any of his own. If he took off his jacket, he would float straight back up to the surface. If he kept it on, he would be rude and could not eat. He tried to argue. But Quaku, it is just a small jacket." "I am very sorry, Anansi," the turtle said, already beginning to eat the delicious food. "It is the rule of the house." Anansi sat there, his stomach rumbling, watching the turtle slowly, calmly, and happily eat the entire feast. He could do nothing. He was trapped by his own greed and the turtle's cleverness. When the last bite of food was gone, the turtle gave a contented sigh. Anansi, fuming with hunger and humiliation, had no choice. Angrily, he wriggled out of his jacket. The moment it came off, the heavy stones fell away, and Anansi shot up, 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 through the water like a cork. He broke the surface with a splash and floated there, watching the turtle wave a slow goodbye from his well-fed seat on the riverbed. Anansi floated home, wet, hungry, and completely outsmarted, and he learned a valuable lesson that day. When you invite a guest to your home, you share what you have. For a trick played on a friend will always, sooner or later, find its way back to you. Now the night is deep. The village is asleep. Even the crickets are singing more softly now. And you, little ones, are on the very edge of dreams. Let my voice be the last thing you hear as you drift away. There is just one more tale to tell. A very short one. It is the story of why Anansi, the great trickster, the owner of all stories, is so often found hiding in the corners of our ceilings. Asterisk, asterisk. This last story is a quiet ending for a clever spider. After all his adventures, after all his tricks, the grand and the small, Anansi found himself in a bit of trouble. You see, a trick is a powerful thing, but if you use it too often, people stop being surprised. They start to watch you. And they start to remember. One day, there was to be a great feast in the village. Everyone was contributing something. The farmers brought yams and cassava. The hunters brought bushmeat. The women brewed sweet palm wine. Anansi, of course, planned to contribute nothing but his appetite. But he wanted to get the very best of the food before anyone else. He came up with what he thought was his most brilliant plan yet. He would play a trick on the entire village at once. He went to the edge of the village and dug a small hidden hole. From this hole, he spun a single, incredibly long, almost invisible thread of web. He took this thread and ran it all through the village, looping it around the leg of the chief's ceremonial stool, around the handle of the pot of the best stew, around the largest roasted yam, and around the gourd of the sweetest palm wine. He took the end of the thread back to his hidden hole. His plan was simple. When the feast began and everyone was distracted, he would pull the thread, and all the best things would come sliding mysteriously towards him. The time for the feast arrived. The drums began to beat a gentle rhythm. The villagers gathered, laughing and talking. The smell of the food was intoxicating. Anansi hid in his hole, his hand on the magic thread, his eyes gleaming with greed. The chief stood up to make a speech. This was Anansi's moment. Everyone was looking at the chief. Anansi gave a mighty tug on his web. But Anansi had grown careless. He had forgotten how much everyone remembered. The chief's son had seen Anansi spinning his web earlier that day and was suspicious. The woman who cooked the stew had noticed the fine thread near her pot. The farmer who roasted the yam felt a strange tension when he set it down. So when Anansi pulled, they were ready. The chief's son grabbed the stool. The woman held her pot tight. The farmer put his foot on the yam. The thread, pulled from both ends, grew taut. It vibrated like a drum string. And then, with a loud snap, it broke. The sudden release sent Anansi tumbling backwards in his hole. But worse, the other end of the thread, now free, whipped through the air. It snagged on a bowl of sticky white porridge that was sitting near the fire. The bowl tipped over, and a great glob of hot sticky porridge flew through the air and landed right on top of Anansi's head. There was a moment of silence. Then a small child pointed. "Look, it's Anansi!" Anansi crawled out of his hole. He was covered in dirt, and on top of his head was a ridiculous, dripping white hat of hot porridge. He had been caught. Not just caught, but made to look utterly foolish in front of the entire village. Everyone started to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into a roar of laughter. They weren't angry, he was just Anansi after all, but the shame of it was more than he could bear. His grand trick had failed, and he was the joke of the feast. His face burned with embarrassment. He couldn't stand it. He turned and ran. He ran away from the laughter, away from the pointing fingers, away from the light of the fire. He ran into the nearest hut, seeking darkness and solitude. He ran up the wall, seeking height. He ran across the ceiling, seeking a place to hide. And he found it, in the darkest, highest corner where the roof meets the walls. He squeezed himself into the tiny space, pulled his legs in tight, and tried to become invisible. And that is where his children and his children's children and all the spiders since that day have felt most comfortable. They are not bad creatures. They are just a little bit shy, a little bit embarrassed by their great-great-great-grandfather's most foolish moment. They still spin their clever webs, their beautiful stories in silver thread, but they prefer to do it quietly. In the corners, in the shadows, where no one is looking. They remember the day Anansi was caught, and they hide just in case anyone is still laughing. So little ones, if you wake in the night and see a small spider in the corner of the ceiling, do not be afraid. He is just a storyteller, hiding from a little embarrassment. He is the child of Anansi, the keeper of tales. Perhaps he is spinning a dream for you. Now the fire is just ash. The night is at its deepest and most silent point. The stories are over. Let them settle in your minds like soft feathers. Let them carry you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Close your eyes, little ones. Let the cricket's song be your lullaby. And perhaps, if you are very quiet, you will see Anansi himself, spinning a new story, a silver story, in the gentle moonlight. Sleep now. Sleep well.